Women, we go through a lot. We go through a lot. Nobody should come and ask me what I bring to the table. We go through a lot. One of the first tests that they asked me to do was the HSG test. They asked both of us to do a number of tests. My husband did his test, but the HSG stood out, and I know many women would resonate with this because of the kind of test that it is. I just hope that medicine and science be kind to we women and find better and easier ways to get these tests done. But as at 2018, when I did the test, they were using some metal equipment, and it sounded like plates banging on each other, like when you're banging your fork and spoon on plates. That's how my insides were sounding with those equipments, and I felt violated. For the HSG test in particular, my results were clean and good. And so I kept wondering, why did I have to go through this? Why did I have to? I didn't need to. Now, because of my experience with this test, I currently would always recommend that the men, the husbands, do their tests first. Do their tests first before the women, your wives, are subject to tests like HSG because of how traumatizing it can be. I have not met any woman who had a good experience. I don't really like HSG. That's why. Hi guys, this is a vulnerable post. I'm sharing my pregnancy journey to encourage others who are waiting. I also want to be able to remember how God took me through my wait times, and also to remember how good God has been good to me. In 2017, I got married, and we decided we wanted to have babies right away. And so for the first year of marriage, we tried. We tried throughout that year, and there was no pregnancy at all. And so we decided to go for some tests. I'm thankful to all of the medical personnel who have been a part of my journey. They were all wonderful. All 3 hospitals that we used did an amazing job, and I'm still in touch with them. One of the first tests that they asked me to do was the HSG test. They asked both of us to do a number of tests. My husband did his test, but the HSG stood out, and I know many women would resonate with this because of the kind of test that it is. I just hope that medicine and science be kind to we women and find better and easier ways to get these tests done. It was crazy. It was one of the worst things I've been through medically. And so I went in for the test, and as much as they try to sedate you, you still feel all the pain. You hear all of the sounds. I hear they're now using plastic, but as at 2018, when I did the test, they were using some metal equipment, and it sounded like plates banging on each other, like when you're banging your fork and spoon on plates. That's how my insides were sounding with those equipments, and I felt violated. I felt it was just a lot. It was a lot. And then after the test, I think I was just floating. My husband was around, and I didn't talk to him. When we got to the car, he asked me how the test went. And in response, I broke down in tears. And I'm not a crybaby. Very few things make me cry. I broke down in tears in response. That's how bad that test is. And I do not wish to go through that anymore. I just hope, I wish and hope that nothing ever brings me back to experience the HSG test again. After that experience, we did other tests, blood tests, and the results were out. For the HSG test in particular, my results were clean and good. And so I kept wondering, why did I have to go through this? why did I have to? I didn't need to. Now, because of my experience with this test, I currently would always recommend that the men, the husbands, do their tests first. Do their tests first before the women, your wives, are subject to tests like HSG because of how traumatizing it can be. I have not met any woman who had a good experience because the test results are usually 50-50. We have come to an age where, because of science, we now know that fertility issues are usually 50-50. It's not always the woman. And so I always recommend that the men do their tests first before women are subjected to this very invasive tests. From all the other tests, we saw where the issues were, and IVF was recommended. Knowing that the recommendation was IVF, we did our research. But because of that HSG test, HSG, why am I stumbling over HSG? I don't really like HSG. That's why. So, because of the results, the experience with the HSG test, I just decided that I did not want to hear anything about childbearing. I did not want to hear anything about mother. Nobody should talk to me about this matter, because why should I go through such, all to find out that nothing was wrong with me? So I decided for a while that I didn't want to hear anything. Aside from that, another thing that fueled our decision not to do IVF that year was our finances, because if you know anything about IVF, it's expensive. And at that time, especially between 2018 and 2020, sometime in 2020, we really, really struggled with our finances. And so we were not really thinking about babies at that time. And so everything was just on hold. But sometime in 2020, there was a turnaround. Our finances began to look up, and we decided to eventually go for IVF in 2020. As at December 2020, we decided, that was when we were told to begin the procedure. But my husband fell very, very, very ill. December 2020. I remember sharing something about this with Pastor Laju. It's on our YouTube channel. You can go watch that. It's something about your waiting time. He fell very ill, and it nearly cost him his life. And so the hospital's recommendation at that time was that we should wait and hold on till that phase passed. And so we waited. It took him a while to recover, about 2 months or so. And then in February, we decided to resume the IVF procedure. IVF itself, aside from the expenses, is a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean when it comes to the effects of the hormones, the injections, the effects on the woman's body. Women, we go through a lot. We go through a lot. Nobody should come and ask me what I bring to the table. We go through a lot. And so The first day, they gave me all of the injections, all the medications that I needed to use. And I was afraid, like, I have to inject this by myself. And they showed me how to do it. Wonderful hospital. And then wonderful staff, wonderful nurses. I remember Nurse Inda and some of the other doctors. They showed me how to administer the injection to myself. My husband is afraid of injections. And so when I tried to ask for help, he was shaking. But I was able to sort it out, sort most of it out by myself. And there were times when I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't take it. I mean, I'm not sick. Why do I have to inject myself twice or three times a day? It was a lot. And then after having to put your mind through that, you now have to go through the hormones, because most of those injections are hormones. You have to go through the hormonal changes that those injections give. And like I said, it's just a lot. Just a lot. But I went through it, I think, for about 1 week and a few days. And then we did the egg retrieval. So the egg retrieval, during the egg retrieval, you're sedated, and then they remove all the eggs that all of those hormones have created. And so they counted the number of mature eggs that I had at that time, and I had 11 mature eggs, which was a good, relatively good number. And then I think 9 eventually got fertilized. And so the waiting game began. You have to wait for 3 days and then 5 days. And I think about 4 of them got to day 5. And then we were called in to do the transfer. 3 of them got transferred. Then the 2-week wait, the popular 2-week wait, we waited. But I think by day 10, I started feeling somehow. And then I did a home pregnancy test and it was positive. I was so excited. Well, I didn't tell anyone. I think I took about maybe a day before I told my husband. And, we were excited. We wanted to wait till the actual hospital visit, because I know that some of the injections that they give can also lead to a positive pregnancy test result. And so we decided to wait before we told anyone. When we got to the hospital, the result was positive, but it was so light that they had to ask us to come back again, I think in 2 days, for another test. So that was the first thing that just made me wonder, is everything okay? When we came back, the test was positive. The result looked better. But they told me that the size of the baby was about 5 weeks and a few days. But usually it's around 6 weeks and a few days, going on to 7 days. So I was a little concerned. And I'm a research person. I like to do research. And so from all the research and from what the doctor said, there was nothing to worry about, especially at that stage of pregnancy. After the second test, we went for a scan. And in that scan, we couldn't see the heartbeat. It looked like we had a blighted ovum. And so the doctor in charge referred us to the gynecologist, who decided to do another scan right there in his office. And there, because as we were on our way, we were already afraid. And we were wondering what was going on. And I know that blighted ovums are quite common. And so when we saw the heartbeat and heard it, we were excited. And it was right after that we shared the news with our close friends and family and loved ones. And so the pregnancy journey began. Now, while some almost everyone we spoke to, I mean, a lot of people have been praying alongside, a lot of people have been talking to God about our situation. A lot of people had been waiting. At this time, we were already 5 years in the marriage. While some were excited, ready to meet the baby. In fact, some had already started sending baby stuff. Thank you, Auntie Paula. I love you so much. You deserve a mention. There were others who were saying stuff like, IVF, you are helping God. And I think that maybe in another video, I'm going to address IVF and medical interventions and how they work hand in hand with the power of God. The next few weeks after confirming this pregnancy were tough. First, I was reacting to a medication they gave me during the transfer and after. I realized that I was allergic to it and it was giving me severe heartburn. I also started having some other reactions and had to put on additional medication. But that phase passed, and then at around the 8-week mark, I started bleeding. I had gone to my husband's office here in Lagos. He was leaving that office and relocating to Abuja for a new job. And so they were doing a send-off party. And after the party, I just went to use the restroom and realized that I was bleeding. And so we contacted the hospital. We went in the next day, and it was a threatened miscarriage. And after that, I was given additional medications, additional injections, and I was told to be on strict bed rest. And so up until about week 14, I was on bed rest, and then I went into the hospital for a check. At this time, I'd been alone for some time. My husband had gone to Abuja. We were planning to fully relocate, but because I was on bed rest, I couldn't move, and some other things. We were looking for accommodation and all of that. And so it was in Abuja. I was in Lagos. I went in for my check, antenatal as usual, and then they noticed something. They noticed that there was no amniotic fluid, and I'm like, which one with this one again? First bleeding, threatening miscarriage. The next thing, bed rest. Now no amniotic fluid. Like, what am I even doing wrong? And so I mean, I did everything I could, drank more water, but that wasn't the issue. That wasn't the issue. They told us that it's possible that there was an issue with the child's kidney, and then they reduced my visit times to the hospital to 1 week so that they could monitor closely what was going on with the baby. And the next visit, they told me that the heart of the baby was enlarged. And I'm thinking, God, please, what's going on? And in my usual style, I did my research. And I realized that if that child was born with all of the issues being experienced in the womb, that child would be unhealthy. That child would be very, very, very sick. And it was in that moment I looked to God and I said, God, if this child is going to be born sick and would struggle in life, please take the child. That's one of the hardest prayers I have prayed. As much as I want children, as much as I'd love to have had one in that time, I wasn't that desperate to bring another human being to suffer. I was not that desperate. And so I prayed that prayer. And you know, when you pray a prayer to God and He answers, especially with peace that surpasses understanding. I don't understand how God, sometimes I feel like God plays with me. How can you answer such a prayer with peace that surpasses all understanding? But I knew that that prayer was answered. And I knew it was the best thing for that baby at that time. And so I told God to take the child. And so while I still had hope that everything was going to be all right, I was praying that all of the issues will be corrected, the heart, the kidney, the amniotic fluid. I had hope, but I went to church that Sunday. And this is another thing I would usually recommend. If you're a Christian, you need to take advantage of your church community and family. If you're a Christian, ensure that you're going to a church that preaches the word in due season. This was the same Sunday my pastor preached on Jireh. Only if you know what that means. It was also the season where that song, Jireh, was popular. I will be content in every circumstance. I knew God was preparing me for a hard time ahead. I just knew it. And in that service, I broke down and cried for myself, cried for my baby. I think I'm about to cry, but I will not cry. I cried with all my heart, knowing what was to come. And a week after, I walk into the hospital for the usual check. And the first doctor who was doing the scan, he didn't see anything. There was no heartbeat, and I could see it. I knew the difference between when there was a live baby in me and when it just looks like everything had collapsed. And so I went to the gynecologist and he broke the news to me. And I broke down again. And I remember the doctor ran out to get the counselor. They took me to another office. She just sat with me, allowed me cry, then made me give my husband a call. And my husband took the first flight out of Abuja that day. And I remember going home. I was released to go home. And I just wasn't talking to anybody. So it scared my husband a bit. He started calling people. I called my parents. My mom headed straight over to my house. So as I was getting into my house, my mom was coming, and this is just the power of community, especially in really tough times like that. It goes a long way. I also remember my pastor, that's Apostle and PL. They came and spent some time with me at home, and it just meant a lot. It meant a lot. Now the weeks after that were rough because I was crying and crying and crying. My husband couldn't stay for too long. He just stayed for about 4 or 5 days. I remember he booked a flight. He was supposed to stay for like 2 days. But I remember the day he was supposed to leave, and I just started crying. I said, please don't leave me. I don't want you to go. And he moved his flight. He stayed with me. But I knew we had to go back. We had to move on with life. And so, yeah, I think it says escaping. Where is that tissue? So after we confirmed that the baby had passed, I was told to come the next day to abort the baby. And the next day I was actually induced and I went into labor. And I was in labor for about 6 to 9 hours. I was in a lot of pain. My husband didn't know how to help me because I wanted him to be around, but I didn't want him to touch me. I wanted him to go away and come back. Eventually, towards the end of the day, I gave birth. I had a stillbirth, and maybe because of all the medication, I just went straight to sleep. Yeah. 3 days after, I started lactating. God. Because of how far along that pregnancy was, I believe they tell us that from week 16, your body begins to produce milk for the baby. And so I started lactating, and so for weeks, my breasts would be very full, hard. I'll need to pump. I was pumping for weeks. I tried to see if I could reduce the number of times that I would pump, but still, I was pumping full bottles. And so you can imagine what that did to my mind. I mean, it's my child, son or daughter, that was supposed to be taking this milk. And a lot of mind battles, I must say, a lot of mind battles. But I know God helped me through that phase. Like I said, the next few weeks were tough. They were really tough. And so we relocated to Abuja. And I decided to just focus on other things. I've decided to do a lot of self-development. And because we relocated, I couldn't go ahead with the other job I had because it was a physical job. And so I began to look into remote work, began to gather some skills, and based off of my work experience, I already had a pretty good and decent CV, and a lot of the skills I had gathered, well, did help. And so I decided to look into remote work, and maybe I will do another video to talk about my experience and maybe a course. Let's see how that goes. But after Abuja, we didn't do anything that year. We relocated. We relocated quite a bit. We relocated a lot. We relocated to Port Harcourt after that. It was in Port Harcourt that I decided I wanted to try again. And so I started asking questions to see if I could use a hospital in Port Harcourt. And thank God for people like Mommy Dele Bamboye, who was able to give us very good advice. But after a few weeks, even though we had gotten all the information we had to relocate again. And that was when I went to Uyo. It was mostly me. I had to pastor a church there. And then we began to frequent Lagos. And so we just decided to use a hospital in Lagos. And this one was recommended by Apostle. Wonderful hospital. We did the procedure again. This time things were different. It's a more expensive hospital. They will run some tests. They didn't do HSV for me again. Me and HSV, no day. I told them, well, I am not, if you tell me HSG, I'm walking out of here. So they promised me that I wouldn't need to do HSG because the other one was still valid. Okay, thank you. And so we did other tests, and then, I was given medication injections as usual. But they did quite a number of things differently. And one of those injections was very, very painful. I'm not a crybaby. There are a few things that can bring me to tears, especially when it comes to pain. I remember before we did one of the procedures, before the main procedure, the doctors asked me what my pain levels are on a scale of 1 to 10, and I said 7. Yeah, they didn't believe me at first until they did something, and my reaction was ow, ow, ow. Meanwhile, other women will be screaming, and I just went ow, 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 and say, "Oh, I believe you. I believe your pain level is 7." But this injection I'm talking about, it's a purple injection, and I think what it does is to delay the maturing of the eggs, the release of eggs, so that we don't waste the procedure. Purple injection, I don't know why it's now in my best color, but it's purple injection. I will never forget it. I remember I had to inject that every day for at least 4 days. And when I say an injection nearly brought me to my knees, as you inject it, tears began to build up in my eyes to tell you how painful some of these things are. Tears began to build up in my eyes, and I was shaking all through. My husband was wondering what was going on. It's the injection. And this is something I had to do every day for at least 4 days just before the egg retrieval. We did the transfer. This was December 2023. Now, I want you to understand that something changed in 2023. I felt a stir, and I knew that it was time. I knew it was time. I knew my baby was coming. And so we had made a decision to do multiple cycles. And when we say multiple cycles, it means you're going to have egg retrieval at most twice, or at least twice, knowing what you're planning to do. And so I had prepared my mind. I was ready to go back to back. I'd never done this before. And so this egg retrieval, well, I had a number of eggs, and for whatever reason, not all of them got fertilized, and we didn't have enough. And so we did the transfer, we did everything. I went back to you, and this IVF failed. And it failed at the funniest time. Usually after 2 weeks, the usual 2-week wait, we would go for a test. That's when you know if it is positive or negative. And that's also when, if it fails, you get your period, what I consider an expensive period. Because after spending all that money, only for you to go on your period is expensive. And so the test was negative, and my period had not come. At least I forgot to mention something. After the first IVF procedure, we tried again and it failed. It failed. I think that was just about a year after, 2022. It failed. And 2023 December, we tried again, and that's what I'm talking about now. This one, my period did not come 2 weeks after. It didn't come, and we were going to the end of the year. And then we were preparing for Overture, which is popularly called crossover night by most Christians or everyone. That's the 31st of December 2023. And I just decided to ease myself before going to church. And there, it failed. Mhm. 1 week after the usual date, it failed. And this was a battle in my mind. I have to prepare for 2024, the new year. I'm feeling a stir knowing that my baby is supposed to come. We did the IVF procedure during a heightened spiritual time. That's what in my church we call reboot camp. So I was expecting that power don't enter and the baby too has entered, you know. And I think that was one of my most heartbreaking IVF failures. After that, we relocated back to Lagos. So yes, I've moved around quite a bit. Relocated back to Lagos. We did another procedure in April. Now that procedure, we were able to get about 23 eggs, which is the highest number I've done so far. And best results so far. And so they transferred at the end of day 5, we had 4 good eggs. And so this is what happened. They decided to transfer 2 of the best. Now the last 2, what they would usually do is they would advise that we freeze so that in case we want to come back and have more children, we can use those eggs. But when they looked at the eggs, they realized that because of their grading and all of that they couldn't freeze those eggs because they would not survive the freezing and thawing process. So we decided to discard. And so after doing the transfer for these 2 great, awesome, amazing eggs, while I was in the waiting room, the doctor came back and said, "Oh, we noticed that one of these eggs could possibly survive the freezing and thawing process. Should we go ahead to freeze the eggs?" And we're like, "Okay, yeah, go ahead, freeze the eggs." Me, I was like, maybe it's the second child that we're looking at, because I was so hopeful. Now, this one was the hardest for me, because amongst all of the IVF procedures we've done, this was the time we had the best results. But this procedure failed. It failed. And I was devastated. And I was not hopeful because of the grading of the last egg that we froze. I was not hopeful about it. But again, we went. We went again, I think 3 months after that. And so I did like back-to-back 3 months, 3 times. I went again and we transferred the one last standing egg, the very last one that we had already decided to discard. I decided, let's transfer the egg and see. And in that time, there's the 2-week wait. People would usually keep their legs up. I did not care. I was climbing stairs. I did not really say because I was not hopeful about the matter. But I remember 2 days before we're supposed to do the check, the tests, the pregnancy test, we were going to church. It was a Sunday. And my husband, who would usually drive like firework, drive like like a smuggling cars. He was doing his thing and my head was spinning. My head was spinning and I was like, babe. Now I would usually go, wee, when he does all those things, wee, wee. Well, that day I was like, no, you have to take it easy. My husband started laughing. He said, something has happened. I don't get you. You scored a goal. So at that day, we were suspecting. I know, like I said, sometimes I think God just likes to play with me sometimes. Um, I went home that day. I went to look for my test. I have pregnancy strips I usually have. And I knew that I had test strips. And I knew the drawer I kept it. But for whatever reason, God just wanted to play with me. My eyes did not see those test strips. I did not see it. And so the 2 days later we went to the hospital, and they have a beautiful way of announcing a positive pregnancy test. But apart from that beautiful, because they will scream and shout, they will gather, come around you. I had nurses crying. It was such an emotional journey for everybody. That was my third IVF procedure with them, and they were so excited, happy that, finally God had answered my prayers. And so, a good hospital, I can't overemphasize, people who actually care. I was wondering, even me when they tell the news, I know they cry. I had people crying, and so that's like, okay. And so it's important to pick a good hospital. It's important to pick a good hospital. It's important to have a good community. And my pregnancy was beautiful. I think I'll share in another video my pregnancy journey and bomb date and all of that. So that has been my story. That's my story. I hope someone is encouraged. I hope you do not give up. I hope that God gives you the resources to do what you need to do. I pray, if you're listening to me speak, if you're waiting on God, I pray that God give you your heart's desires. That's my prayer for you. I think I promised you 3 videos from this video. And so if you'd like to see any of my other videos, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. You can also leave a comment. Let me know how any of this resonates with you, what you've learned. If you have advice, please go ahead. Give it in the comment section. I'd be watching. Thank you and bye-bye.